Hi, I'm Jeanine Cosgrove-Albert, the Vice President with At Your Service Staffing, today's host and moderator of the At Your Service Hospitality Buzz. Today's topic is one that is a hot one. It is discussing events and operations with food service and hospitality at higher education locations. Today, I am joined by Sunita Devi, who is the Director of Events and Operations at New York University. I am also joined by Brian Rice, who is the General Manager with Restaurant Associates at MIT. And I'm also joined by Lauren Williams, who is the General Manager with RA at Harvard Law School. So I will kick off with a pretty sweeping question and say that we've made it to 2021. We got through 2020 and we made it. And tell me a little bit about how this semester, the spring semester of 2021, is different than your fall semester of 2020. Operations, events, feel free to share what what you're able to. And I'll start with Sunita.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you first and foremost for having me on this podcast with these amazing panelists as well. Very happy to be here. So NYU has seen a little bit more students on campus than we did in the fall semester. We are seeing that students are a little less uncertain about the world, as are the administrators. And it'd be very interesting to see what the other campuses feel as well. But from an events perspective, we're seeing that people are a little bit more comfortable with virtual events, whether that's Zoom, that's Pathable, that's Cvent. We are seeing that they are actually now trying to get creative with it and looking at more of the ROI rather than just doing the event, which is very interesting because technically we should have always been doing that really, but we weren't. And as a venue, as you know, Jeanine, I oversee two buildings here on campus at NYU. We aren't seeing as many in-person events as we would have hoped, right? If you had asked me this time last year, I would have been like, yeah, fall 2020, we'll be back on campus, we'll be doing our thing, but we're not. What we are seeing, though, is a lot of people being comfortable with delving into the world of hybrid events. We all know that commencement and graduations are coming up at the end of this semester. So I think people are asking the how do we, more so in the hybrid events world. It's very new to them. It's very new to the venue as well. So I think we're just delving into the world of hybrid formats as it pertains to commencement and graduation, which is something that actually I think administrators and students probably would never have thought about in the fall. They just weren't comfortable. So we are seeing the difference in the semesters of just like folks being really comfortable and just exploring and being a little bit more creative. So I can only imagine what it's going to look like in the summer and then in the fall 2021 too.
No, for sure. And what about you, Lauren?
So I think that particularly at the law school, majority of the classes are done online. In between, I've been helping a little bit also at Harvard Business School during this time. So they're doing a combination of online and hybrid classes as well. So definitely, I think as a whole, everyone thought the semester was going to look very different, and they thought that we were going to be able to come back and everyone was going to be able to social distance and they were going to be able to have that valuable in-person experience, but that they weren't able to do it as quickly as they had hoped. But I think that the schools that are doing it, they kind of put a lot of effort into doing mock sessions and planning trial days to see how well students moved around campus. And that's kind of important to make sure that it is able to happen. You're able to kind of get that experience. But otherwise, they are doing, similar to what Sunita said, a lot of Zoom events, and socially distanced, and doing a lot of online ordering for catering and pickup ordering for catering as well, because they are definitely trying to find a way, if possible, for them to get some sort of campus experience. But if not, that they are doing the online classes. And some schools have decided to do maybe have first years and third years return and have the middle year stay completely online or at home, depending on where they are in their learning. But I think It just depends on each campus and what their capabilities are and how many students are in each year.
For sure, for sure. And Brian, how about you at MIT?
So we're sort of in the mix between the two. Our services for events have basically expired as of last March. We aren't doing events, but and same to Sunita's point, where we've had a lot of questions regarding what a virtual event would look like. Our presidential and corporation and visiting committee groups are really starting to dive into how to turn our conference center into virtual or smaller scaled events. But our services have sort of evolved into more of supporting the residential dining vendor on campus. And where before we were exclusive to Sloan Management School and we were doing their cafe services, we've now evolved that into our Sandburg and turned our Sandburg Conference Center into one gigantic cafeteria, basically on the 6th and 7th floor, where we got high tops that are 10 to 15 feet separate. We are just trying that this semester. We actually haven't, to Lauren's point, we've done a lot of trials over the last few days, but we haven't actually rolled that out. That'll roll out next week. And we'll see how that goes. And then, but I think also to Sunita's point, I would say that we've experienced a lot more comfortableness, which is sort of a little scary as well. I think there's a heightened safety component that we're all trying to keep the staff to and keep our teams to, but you see a lot more comfortable amongst the students who are especially just venturing here for the first time.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. So definitely we're looking at more of a thoughtful approach, a safety approach. And obviously there's not a lot of events because of those, those concerns and, practices. So I would say in lieu of events, I would imagine to still promote community on your campuses. What are you doing? What do you feel you're coming out of the box, with, and, feel free to jump in and share if it's not any proprietary information, of course, but feel free, to share what you are doing in lieu of events to still promote that community, because it's such a big part of the college experience, events, whether, you're a first year student and you're on campus getting to know other students, or you're graduating, you're a senior, or you're in, law school and you're, attending, networking, events at a high level. So, I'll definitely turn this one to you, I think, first, Lauren, to see what you all are doing in lieu of the events, because I would imagine Harvard Law School, there's a little bit of a pressure to still conduct these, to have something to make that connectivity.
A lot of the events are in that aspect are kind of driven by human resources and trying to make sure that everyone's still feeling connected and trying to make them a little bit more social aspects. So they've done cocktail classes, and there's sometimes cooking classes, or looking at sharing healthy eating habits. We've done some cookbooks and kind of sharing what you've been cooking at home and sending photographs in and recipes and those sort of things to kind of get the community sharing their time of things that they've been doing at home. And then with staff and faculty, they've also been doing some job sharing across the campus, and so you're kind of looking at some other areas and departments and what they're doing. And one of the things that the law school did this year is we normally have a huge Thanksgiving pie giveaway, and so that they were very concerned that event would still happen this year, and that's something that normally everyone would come to a large event space on campus and collect pie and make cards that say thank you and hand them out to staff. And that we actually worked with another RA partner and delivered the pies to all faculty and staff at home. So we kind of sent out a link for them to order 5 different types of pie and still have the pies delivered to their home. So they had a little bit of normalcy and something that would normally happen on campus every year, and that they didn't feel that they missed out on it this year. And that was something that they definitely wanted to make sure still happened, and that was very, important to them, and sort of having that social aspect and still take place and feeling connected as a team.
For sure. And Sunita, what about NYU?
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to have to get that Thanksgiving pie hookup though, Lauren. Would love that any day. Doesn't have to be Thanksgiving. So we're seeing a lot of trainings and programming centered around obviously everything that happened last year with social justice and diversity and inclusion. What we're seeing a lot of is through events, there's a lot of breakout rooms to make it a little bit more intimate. And to get to know our colleagues. And we have a fantastic global inclusion and strategic innovation office that really takes control of that. What we are doing as well is we're looking forward to Pride Month. So we're still programming based on, Black History Month, which our dining services are doing a fantastic job of theming their dining halls around. Women's History Month is this month as well. So they're highlighting female chefs. For us in particular, we're looking at our annual Pride reception, and basically invite with Zoom. You can invite the whole world now. So that's what we're looking to do, rather than kind of just making it towards a certain demographic based on space and capacity as well as what we did before. So we're kind of using the Zoom and the digital platform to our advantage to still bring people together through events. We've seen a rise in events actually through the digital platforms, which has been fantastic. From a venue standpoint, we've actually turned our event spaces into multi-purpose use, a lot of classroom spaces. So still creating those spaces where folks can come on campus. Obviously, our event spaces are really large, so classrooms in there really work. Also looking at quick stop spaces or study spaces for students to come out of their dorms and still be in a large space, 6 feet apart, and be able to study as well and just get out of the mundane world of their classroom or their dormitory. And that's really worked out well for us. So it's going to be interesting to come back on campus and see if people still prefer that virtual world over being in person.
For sure. And Brian, what about MIT?
Similar to Lauren, we're doing a number of campus-wide. One of the departments has asked us to do gourmet cookie bag drop-offs, and we've done wine and cookbook drop-offs. So we're keeping those aspects alive throughout the high-profile clients. But our mind shift has sort of really evolved into the student socializing aspect a lot more than what we were used to doing. And that has been a huge mind shift for the entire team, I will say, because you have to think of it in a very different way. St. Patrick's Day is a completely different thing when you're thinking about it towards a college kid than when you're thinking about it as a parent or as a corporate or professional. So that's where we're trying to stay apart from our competition and work towards really creating these experiences for the students that are willing to come to campus and give this whole thing a shot. And I will say move-in weekend, which was about a month ago, was an eye-opening experience because it's these freshmen that are literally being dropped off. They're allowed one parent to go into the dorm with them for 2 hours. And it was heartbreaking in a lot of ways. And I think it was really good for our team to sort of witness that, because it did bring everyone's level up to, we need to do everything we can for these kids and to do everything we can to create as much social aspects around that as possible. So Pi Day for us, as great as Lauren's pies sound, Pi Day for us is now 3/14 because that's MIT for you. So we're creating a whole concept around March 14th and Pi. So I would say those are the biggest social aspects that we're working on right now.
Yeah, and Brian, you mentioned move-in day was, about a month ago. Were you all virtual at MIT for the fall semester?
No, we were solely devoted towards the management school, Sloan School, for all their services, and then we were given the opportunity and asked to do 4 residential dining locations on campus in order to bring more students back. So we are basically doing offsite catering, breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week at 4 dining locations, and we're using our in-house kitchen to serve as the commissary for all satellite locations.
Wow. Okay.
So we've sort of shifted our focus into residential dining for at least the next 14 to 16 weeks.
And now NYU and Harvard Law School, are you doing something similar to what MIT is doing, or?
Oh, so at the law school right now, they actually there are no students. The only students that are there are students that still could not return home. So in the beginning, we had a number of students that, for most intents and purposes, were kind of stuck in Cambridge for the summer. There was about 150 students that couldn't travel anywhere, and then we were also dealing with students that were either ill or were needing to quarantine, and we were dealing with they housed all the students that were ill in one location, and so we were dropping off meals for them every day and managing their quarantine process. But then after a certain time, when things sort of loosened up in regards to travel restrictions, so there's now only about 50 students still on campus. Everything else is online, so they have not returned. The students have not returned, and they haven't announced when they're going to be returning. So everything else that we've been working on is for when we come back full-fledged and onto campus to say, this is going to be refitting cafes, or this is going to be a pickup area, or how is it going to look in the future. All the menus need to be revamped for individual meals because there's no buffets anymore. Looking at what exec ed's going to be like, no self-service coffee stations, what's the traffic in the cafe going to be like, and kind of helping them look at that. And even which I'm sure Sunita is dealing with in all the meeting rooms, what are the capacities, how many times do the rooms need to be cleaned, what is the in, what is the out. So they're not having in-person classes at the law school right now.
Okay. And Sunita, NYU, you have been back. The students have been on campus since the fall, yes?
Yeah, that's correct. So we've been back, obviously not as many students as not in the normal world, but a little bit more now in the spring than there was in the fall. We're pretty much back. We're full-fledged. We have a great operation going as far as dining service is concerned. Obviously, to Brian's point, we don't have many events. If there are events happening, it's very essential, which a lot of our students pretty much won't. They are actually back on.
Okay, excellent. And is there something that you all see from pre-pandemic times that's going to go post-pandemic, that's going to stay with us post-pandemic? Do you see something that's, going to stick? And if so, what do you think it may be? Brian, I'll throw this one over to you.
I'm not sure. We're watching a lot of trends, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Last fall, I would say all the efforts that we have done in regards to sustainability and composting and everything else, I was shocked. There were several high conversations with individuals on campus where they literally said sustainability is out and safety is in, and safety is going to win over sustainability every single time. Make your decisions accordingly. And I think that was incredibly hard to hear because we've made so many leaps and bounds in the industry that way. But so I think that's something that we're monitoring very closely. Somebody mentioned buffets earlier. I don't see buffets coming back anytime in the near future. I think the trend of small plates that was already moving forward before will take off more than anything in the events world after. We're trying to think through those processes and get creative with our styling of those stations, and whether there's the bookshelves in front of the station, so you're still protecting your staff member, but you're grabbing individual small plates off of individual levels of tiers and bookshelves and things like that. So I think some of that will stick around. But I would also say that for us, a lot of it still remains unknown at this point, and what the comfortability is going to be when events return.
Sure. And Lauren, what about you? What do you see maybe one of these kind of more safe, conscious, safety and distance trends that might stick?
I think mask wearing is going to stay stay around for some time. Intense cleaning of high touch areas, contactless solutions, mobile ordering for a lot of your cafes and even for catering. I think, as to Brian's point, social distancing to some aspect. I think the students don't follow it as much. I think a lot of times they'll come really close and they'll have to be like, okay, wait a minute, or okay, wait a second. The sanitation signage. And I think that to have all the food individually packed is important. Someone and it being tamper-proof and someone no one else has touched it will be important, and that people will also take smaller menus. Whereas before they wanted to have every day, and now they'll accept less in exchange for all of those other aspects that I mentioned, I think.
Awesome. No, makes sense. And Sunita, what about you at NYU? What do you think you see? What do you see sticking around?
Yeah, definitely everything that Brian and Lauren had just mentioned. And Brian had mentioned safety first. And I think we've always done that. That's always been something that we've done. But I think more so now, I think our guests are going to want to see it, whether it's through signage, whether it's through us letting them know what we're doing with safety. Before, we didn't really have to tell them. Now we're going to have to be very blatant about it. One thing I think that we're also going to see is a lot of, to Lauren's point, technology and the contactless way of doing things. Whether that is engaging the students or the clients with technology, whether it's gamification, but really looking at ways of engaging the clients with the event, with the operation. Also insights. I think metrics and data are going to be massive now. I think we're going to have to justify what we're doing. And again, I've said this before, we should have been doing that anyway, but it was never that big deal. How many students are we serving? How many plates or cups of coffee? It's becoming very granular. And I think it all boils down to the point of being careful with our budget, right? So I think that's going to be something that we take on for many years to come is the ROI. Why are we doing this event? What does this event bring in for us? And what is the value? So, yeah.
No, for sure. And, that kind of this question or line of conversation brings me to the vaccine. I know that when you go to college or university or graduate school, you sometimes do have to have your inoculations up to date. Do you think your institutions will require the COVID vaccine? Is what, I'm interested in thinking if there's been any conversation that you all have heard. I know everything is very new and fresh and speculatory, but that's why we're here having this conversation. So yeah, Lauren, has there been any conversation about that at Harvard Law School?
There hasn't, truthfully. I think everyone is waiting for someone else to make a decision. No one kind of wants to be the first. I think from company perspectives, they're waiting for the client to decide. The client is waiting for the company to decide. And even for staff members working, they're wanting to know if it's going to be mandatory for them to do it. And I think nobody is really wanting to make that decision to say that it's going to be enforced on somebody. So I don't know really which way that's going to go. I think that overall, a lot of the general census of the population in their trust in the vaccine is definitely improving as time goes on. That the general census that it's getting a lot better. But I personally think one thing that will will push people to get it is if they say that you can't travel to get it because you can't, you can't, you can't go on your vacation because you have to prove that you have the vaccine. I think that that's going to be a big fact. I mean, for me, that's why I'm like, give me the vaccine tomorrow because I want to go sit on a beach somewhere with a pina colada. But I think that that's kind of going to be pushing it. Or also if you have family that lives in another country and you haven't seen them in a long time and you kind of been putting that off and you want to see them in person. But I think that unless you work like in a hospital or obviously first responders, I think that companies are right now reluctant to make that, be the first to make that, say it out loud. Sure. That they're going to mandate it.
Yeah, nope. It's definitely tough to be the first for sure. And again, we're still in such new territory with the vaccine. Sunita, what about you guys at NYU?
It's definitely an ongoing conversation right now. And we are mobilizing vaccine areas on campus, not in my building, but across campus, where we're just waiting now. We're waiting for the vaccines to come through so we can offer it out to whether it's faculty that are teaching on site, students on campus, also our food service folks that have already been here feeding our students. So we're pretty much past the stage of will we be doing it? We will be doing it. It's just when. And to Lauren's point, will we be mandating it? I don't think that we can. So I don't think that's a decision that's been made. But we're excited. I'm like you, Lauren. Give me the vaccine. I'm ready to go to Puerto Rico sometime soon.
So. I will say that Compass Group is definitely encouraging us to have the vaccine. They're very much encouraging us and giving us time off to have it, but they haven't said that it's mandated.
Right.
And Brian, what about MIT?
They are going about it very similar as discussed. They're also taking the approach where just because you are vaccinated, it doesn't change the campus protocols. So we've had a lot of staff who have recently received it, and that question's come up. And MIT Medical is standing firm on this, that it doesn't change anything through the policy. It doesn't change the attestation daily. It doesn't change the testing every 2 or 3 days. So same thing. I don't think it'll be mandatory, but they were supposed to have accumulated a number of vaccines for all of the staff, and that sort of has shifted conversations over the last week. But we'll see how it goes with state mandates.
For sure. It is definitely, like I said, a hot topic, a conversation, to be had. But it is interesting to hear, over, just from your 3 institutions that it does sound like the protocols and the safety procedures will not change once the vaccine is received. So that definitely will, cause for more, special planning for events when we can have them again and graduations and whatnot. But one of the things that also is a hot topic is that enrollment seems to be down in some colleges and universities and higher education, because I think people have seen that they can attend school without physically being at school, or they can attend school, maybe not at the level that people once aspired to, an MIT and NYU, a Harvard Law School. How do you foresee this impacting the role of higher education, especially, with hospitality as we start to enter into post-pandemic, or as some people are starting to call it again, the roaring 20s? How do you foresee this happening? And Sunita, I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I think for NYU, enrollment is actually the same. It's not, I think, so we don't have the same amount of students on campus, but we're still having the same amount of enrollment, right? Students wanting to be at NYU. and obviously with students being on site, I don't know if it's a New York City thing, they just want to be in the city. So I would differentiate that. We do see a lack of administrators on site, and those are one of our biggest clients of hosting events and doing anything hospitality related. So with them still being predominantly working from home, and that seems to almost be a semi-long-term plan for NYU, we do have to look at how many events will be on campus. What is the volume going to look like in spring 2022 when I think we'll be back on site doing many events? But I think that the style of events, the type of events may change. And I had mentioned this before, we're going to be asked, why are we doing the event? What is the ROI? What is the value of that event? And so that means I do believe that the topics of our events may change. From something that we were doing from a HR standpoint, or whether it was from faculty standpoint, those topics may change, maybe geared towards more health related possibly, but they're definitely going to have to be a reason. And again, I bring up the budget because I think no matter where you are in America, there's been some kind of impact on budget, whether it's your personal or professional. So I think we're going to see some changes there due to the fact that folks just aren't on campus. But again, I'm looking forward to seeing how we can really adapt and change. And I think that's the job of all of us on this call, really, is to adapt and change to the new environment that, to Brian's point earlier, we just don't know. So I think it's going to be interesting to, when it gets to us, how we're going to explore that.
Yeah, and Brian, to that point, what do you see with MIT?
Same. I know the presidential events they're dying to get back on and they're trying to figure it out. But I think we've had to adapt to a new norm in so many ways, where by just simply saying yes, we're still keeping business going, but in a completely different way. And it's sort of in this mindset of say yes, and then we're going to figure it out later, which is a completely different way of going about it. Typical operation. And I would say with students, I don't think the social aspect is going to be there anytime soon as much as we want it to with the events. And I think primarily, to Sunita's point, it's going to be faculty and staff. That's going to be the main focus, and then we'll sort through the rest as we go, I guess.
Sure. And Lauren, what about Harvard Law School?
I don't know that enrollment's actually down at the law school or the business school. I think that acceptance rate has gone down because maybe in all of our locations more people are applying, or the same number of people are applying. But at the end of the day, I think that what we're contending with is that there are going to be less people coming to work every day. So like in the future, there's going to be people working from home maybe 2 days a week or something of the sort. But I think that the most important thing for all of us is that in a recent survey, people said that 74% of people do still want to return to work, and they want the option to still be able to go to an office and not just simply work from home. And so it's up to us to make sure that we're kind of expanding the services that we offer and the events that we do provide when they are on campus, and making sure that we give them the best experience possible when they are there. And I think also event wise that when and it depends on each state, I think that they're already relaxing some of the numbers of events that can happen, because like 100 people indoors and 150 outdoors, maybe in New York now. So that like alumni events and is a huge, if some of your schools haven't had any alumni events in a while, and they're used to having like 3 to 4 session of alumni events a year, for them, that is networking is like, they're all about networking. They're all about seeing their past schoolmates and getting those business opportunities and seeing people, and so that will be a great opportunity to keep looking towards and seeing how we're going to return in that area, and making that the best that it can possibly be, and sort of being ready for that, because I think that alumni teams are going to be really excited to get back to planning those as soon as they are able to.
For sure. And I will say this, At Your Service is, we are a partner to all of your locations and institutions. And Alumni Weekend, I attended Siena College, and I know how important Alumni Weekend is. I don't always get to go to it because it's upstate. I'm on Long Island here in New York, but Harvard Business School, Harvard Law School, MIT, your alumni, they enjoy getting together. And every year it's amazing to see how there are classes from the 1930s still getting together, to see each other. I mean, it just is always amazing to us. I remember one year, I think for Harvard Business, we saw like a class of like 1929, and we were like, are you kidding us? Like, are you pulling our leg? And, we were told by, our client on campus, like, no, there's a few people and they want to get together and they want to see each other. So I'm sure the NYU is the same. I mean, you host an amazing, alumni as well. So I do, it would be nice to see the alumni get back together, because I do, just from the events perspective and my experience, of staffing and, supplemental staffing and temporary staffing, the last 23 years of the alumni events at the institutions just really is something that always amazes me, and I think it's great. I think it's terrific how they occur, so hopefully we'll definitely be getting back to those.
I also think it's just going to be a stage when everyone's going to go a little bit crazy, and we're all going to be struggling to get everything staffed and done. And there's going to be a stage where there's a lot of events going on, and everyone's going to want to have a really good time.
Yeah, for sure. And that leads me to another question, in that we are obviously a partner, a vendor, and as we return, we have been working. We started working again with MIT, and I know some of our some of what we're doing there, protocols and procedures. But what are you all going to be expecting from your vendors as we return? And Brian, I will start with you, since I'm somewhat familiar of what's being expected with you all.
We look at all of our partners in a different way, and I will say that many of the partners are handling this very, very differently. Our food purveyors, we're really struggling with our food purveyors because they don't have the product, or it's very possible they have the product one day and then we guarantee it for the semester, and a week later they've run out of the product. So there's some of that with that partnership. There are some rental companies that are taking advantage of this opportunity in the market, and understandably so, because they're renting equipment and tables and chairs to tents at every local restaurant, etc. And I understand from their point of view, the costs have risen significantly with some of them. And I think for us, the thing that we would probably be looking for the most is just collaboration, with the understanding that we're all in this together. Sunita has mentioned it several times, but the budgets are different. They just are not anywhere near what they would have normally been pre-pandemic. And our labor costs are through the roof, and they're justifiably so, because instead of staffing just servers and cooks, we're now staffing bathroom attendants and elevator attendants and sanitizers and everything else. So in general, we're looking for more collaboration with our partnership and being able to talk through some of those financial restraints, and see if there's any wiggle room that we can give back and forth.
Awesome. And Sunita, what about NYU? What are you all anticipating from your vendors across the board as we return more to events or in-person gatherings, or just more people on campus in general?
Yeah, Jeanine, you and I have had numerous conversations about this as well. And I think we're expecting our vendors to be the subject matter experts of their industry. because we won't know, right? We're so focused on what we're doing that we don't have the time to search what our catering partners, what's supposed to be, friendly and in the COVID world with them. What we are expecting though is, training for to be hospitable in a COVID world. We're wearing masks, we're still going to be 6 feet apart from each other. So, these rules are not going to go away. Now, Lauren had mentioned that before, and they're here to stay for a little while, even if we do have events back on campus. So how can we be hospitable? How can we be great partners to our partners, and really just connect and work things through? We all don't know the answers. Things are changing every minute of every day. So how can we kind of navigate those waters together? And I think communication is going to be the biggest key. I think that's the expectation. If you don't know, it's okay, we'll figure it out together. But from a client's perspective, I think the expectation is for them to be told, because they don't know. I think it's going to be interesting. And I think right now it's the time to be kind. Sometimes when you're in a partnership, it can be very, intense, and you go through the motions with each other. And I think that the expectation is to be kind and to work through it together, because we've never been through this before.
For sure. And Lauren, what do you foresee as your, needs and thoughts, with vendors moving forward?
Much what Brian and Sunita said, but some of the points that I put down is definitely from both aspects for clients and vendors is proceeding with caution, having understanding that both of us are going to have COVID operation plans that we need to adhere to for both sides, for your client perspective, from a vendor perspective, that we have precautions that we need to have in place. Giving each other pre-warning of changes to procedures that we have changed, or something that's, you've been working together for a very long time, so you might just think everything's going to be the same, but all of a sudden your rules and your parameters have changed, and kind of maybe giving a run through. Or for us, I know it's a huge thing to give pre-warning, like, hi, I think I had reached out to you and said, when your staff come back, we need you to let them know that we're going to ask them a series of questions. We're going to take their temperatures. We're going to require them to wear masks. We're going to, all of these things, because we didn't want it to be a surprise when they arrived to work on site. But I think that we're going to struggle as things get busy and we return to having a lot of events, to having supplies, as Brian said. I think that we're still, we struggled in the beginning with getting PPE and gloves and masks, and I think that all of that is going to come full circle again. I think we're going to struggle with vendors, with getting foods, with getting all these disposables that we found to put individual meals in. I think that it's going to come full circle again, that we're going to find that as we get busy, we're going to have trouble getting those issues again, and we're going to have to keep going back and finding alternatives for all of these items that we source, and that we're going to have to be ready to look for new items, and that the clients are going to have to also understand that that's going to keep changing all the time as more events start to take place.
No, for sure. And I do know that from working with all three of you, or conversations that we've had, it does seem like transparency and communication is really going to be key, because as much as, at your service or another vendor may want to be back and, get back to business and, find that normalcy again, the greater good here is the safety. And it's not only of our clients, but it's also our staff, here at our company, where, we want them to be safe and comfortable with returning, to work. And, we've been working on navigating that with them since, last year, and new things come up, and I think that be able to have the conversations and to be transparent with one another is definitely going to be paramount as we move forward and navigate this. With that said, I do want to thank all of you for joining us today. I think this is a good place to leave off. We do appreciate you taking the time, joining me today for this conversation. And I look forward to speaking with you all again soon, and hopefully maybe see you, sometime soon as well. Let's all get that vaccine. Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye, guys. Be well.